A very good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's not European Outlook. No, I'm talking rubbish. The Global Weather and Climate Report edition 109 live stream this afternoon. So hope everybody is well. I hope the technology plays out as it normally would, but certainly last week was a bit of a disaster to say the least. But hopefully things are going to run a little bit smoother today. So it is obviously Sunday, the 22nd of September. We are approaching the end of the first month of meteorological autumn, and obviously today actually marks astronomical autumn. So it is now autumn. In many people's eyes, officially autumn has begun as of today, the 22nd of September. So a very warm welcome to you. I hope you're enjoying your weekend so far. Good afternoon to Laura Johnson. I think Laura was the first person on the chat. We've got Chris A. We've got Mark Kinnish, who is enjoying his holiday down in Portugal, I hope. We've also got Katrine also present this afternoon as well. So a very good afternoon to everybody. We've currently got 8 concurrent viewers. You know the script by now. If you haven't already done so, please hit that like button and let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Are you a subscriber to Mark Vogan Weather here on YouTube? If you aren't, but you're an interest in weather, I certainly would encourage you to hit that subscribe button, because we've got lots of interesting things coming up. 7 days a week content here on the channel. We'll look at things that you don't really see elsewhere on YouTube. So very good afternoon to Sync Splint. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon, Sync, and a very good day to you. So Mark Kinnish says, hi Mark, can't stay on the live stream this week. Currently on holiday in Portugal in the Algarve. Weather great, 23, sunny and dry. Be back on next weekend. So certainly enjoy your holiday, Mark. What's left of it anyway, my friend, and get back safe during the week coming up. So we certainly do have some very unsettled conditions, especially across southern and central UK. We've got an amber warning has been issued by the Met Office due to heavy thundery downpours. We could see a month's worth of rain falling in a very short space of time. We've got Lindsay Vogan tuning in. I know Lindsay has been busy trying to get the dinner sorted out, so I do appreciate Lindsay's support by moderating today's live stream. Also looking for a few volunteers, by the way. I know that the channel is going to start getting busier as we progress towards the winter season. So if you are interested in moderating on the channel here, let me know. Drop a comment, and I would love to hear from you. So yeah, Paul Farwell as well tuning in. Hello to you, Paul. Hello, Mark. Rain on and off in Swindon. More is forecast. David Vogan tuning in from Kirkintilloch. Hello from a dry but cold Kirkintilloch. We've got Adam Blunston. Hey all, we had thunder, lightning yesterday morning. It was amazing. I bet it was, Adam. I certainly do wish we had more in the way of thunderstorm activity up here in the chilly north. Certainly has been chilly this past few months. We did hit 24.7 here at the house a few days ago, and that was the warmest since way back in May. So warmer than any day in June, July and August back at the beginning of the week just gone. So yes, it was certainly nice, I must admit. Got the grass cut a couple of days ago as well. It'll be interesting to see if that is the last cut of the year. So who else have we got here? We've got John Bevan. Hello to you, John. Hi, Mark. Love the content. Nice, in-depth and very fascinating. Thank you very much, my friend. I certainly do try to provide a unique experience here on the channel. I try to not hype things up. There is sometimes, I suppose, you get a little bit excited and whatnot, but especially when you've got a deep negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation, and the next wave of Arctic air dropping into the UK this upcoming work week. This is going to be the second Arctic outbreak of September, which is somewhat unusual. Blocking does occur during the month of September, but we don't often get pushes of Arctic air into the UK on a second wave during the month of September. So is that a harbinger of things to come? That will be the big question going forward here. Hello to Gav's Weather Vids. Hello to Gavin. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon, my friend. I know Gavin has released his fourth winter update on his channel, so do check that out. Gavin and the team there do a tremendous, unique job on YouTube by looking forensically at all the different teleconnections, analogs, various rainfall percentages based on the past, etc., etc. So do check out Gavin. I know most folks here do already subscribe and are a follower of Gav's Weather Vids. So we've got, who else have we got here? So hello everyone else. Evening Gav. So yeah, do, as always, hit that like button. It lets myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here. It helps the algorithm of the channel, spreads out the coverage on the platform itself, so it is very much appreciated. David Vogan says, I would be interested in Shropshire weather for Wednesday to Saturday. Certainly, yes, it's looking rather unsettled, and it looks as if once we get an area of low pressure, Wednesday and the Thursday moving eastwards, we're opening the door to something a little bit of an Arctic origin. We may see temperatures struggling to get out of the 8 to 10 Celsius range quite widely across northern UK, probably low teens at best across the south, really from Bristol to London, as we push towards the latter half of this upcoming working week. In terms of nighttime temperatures, that will depend on wind and cloud cover, of course, but we certainly do have quite a deep negative North Atlantic oscillation that is really tanking, and this is the first time in really several months that we've seen such a deep negative NAO. And I've alluded to the explanation. I don't want to get too much into the technical aspect about it. I know people like my dad and other folks, in some respects maybe aren't really overly interested in the in-depth stuff, which I appreciate. Everybody is on here for a different experience. Folks want to know what the weather's going to do over the next several days. Other folks want to know some explanation as to why we get certain types of weather patterns here in the UK, Ireland and Europe. But I've in-depth spoken about the various reasons behind the type of pattern that we've got at the moment. SOI, La Nina continuing to show a little bit more influence now. We've got the Mann-Julian oscillation in phase 7, which tends to promote blocking and cold outbreaks into parts of the mid-latitude pattern as well. So yes, it certainly is interesting times if you're a lover of all things weather. So yeah, in terms of David's question, my opinion would be that it would be quite unsettled, wet, windy, and the temperature will be coming down as the week progresses, especially towards the middle and second half of the week. I think it's once that low moves to the east into the North Sea that we really open the door to something a lot colder coming down. So Gavin says, hi everyone, great to see you all. It certainly is great to see everybody this afternoon. And it appears to be that everything technology-wise is back to normal. So in just a second or two, we will get into today's content. Interesting things going on in South Africa. We've had some of the coldest weather in a couple of decades. I think the route between Johannesburg and Durban was essentially shut down. The traffic stuck in deep snow. So very, very nasty winter conditions down in parts of South Africa. We've also got some significant rain quite widely over Australia, and that might be a kind of hallmark of La Nina becoming somewhat stronger. The MJO had been in phases 6 and 7, which tends to promote a lot of upward motion, thunderstorm activity, enhanced rainfall over anywhere from Australia all the way up to Japan. We've seen significant flooding in parts of Japan in recent times as well. But it certainly is quite interesting when you look at this, CDAS 0.5 data for the month today. So this is through Sunday the 22nd of September. I'll get there. And you can see quite interesting amounts of cold showing up over parts of Eurasia, even India as well. We're seeing the Indian monsoon soon probably starting to kind of ease its intensity, especially with the widespread sinking starting to develop over this area as the MJO slips into the Atlantic Basin. We're going to have a watch of that Central American gyre over Central America developing, and then there's modelings indicating that a feature may spin off that gyre, that larger circulation of low pressure that tends to form late spring and also into the autumn season. You usually don't find that due to seasonality, the position of the ITCZ, the time of the year, for example. You tend to find that these gyres over Central America tend to form during the early portion of the summer and late summer into the autumn season. So we'll watch this space. It looks as if some of the model indicates some significant hurricanes potential anyway, moving into the Gulf of Mexico and affecting the southern United States. But again, until something has physically formed, the modelling is all over the place in terms of eventual strength, outcome, where it's going to make landfall, etc. So we'll keep an eye on that here, and we'll be watching that quite carefully here on Mark Vogan Weather on YouTube. So yeah, let me see if anybody else have kind of missed out on. Sing Splint says, I will moderate, Mark, if you need. Thank you very much. We'll try and be in touch, Sing Splint, as well. That would be much appreciated. Thank you for commenting. I do appreciate that. Just trying to see if there's anybody else that I've missed out on in terms of giving a mention. So we hope Mark enjoys the rest of his holiday in Portugal. I think he comes back to the UK midweek. It looks as if we've got some fairly nasty weather coming up. That south displaced jet that was mentioned all last winter appears to be coming back into the fray once again. If we actually look at the total rainfall, and we'll look at the global stuff in just a second here, but let's have a look at the rainfall, total accumulated precipitation over the next week or so here, because it's quite interesting. It pretty much tells you exactly where the storm track is going to be, where the jet is going to be positioned. But if we look at initially the GFS model, which tends to not have quite as high of a resolution as the ECMWF, but this is the GFS total accumulated precipitation. So essentially you can see where the jet is going. We've got this strengthening jet over the Atlantic. Notice this is the UK and Ireland right here. So notice the focus of heaviest rain between now and Tuesday, the 1st of October, is going to be over southern UK in particular. So that's where your jet is going to be positioned. Notice here that we see that moisture then move into the near continent and then northwards up through Scandinavia. So a high pressure system is going to be building over Eastern Europe. I did allude to the fact that could we see another extreme rainfall event as this next wave of Arctic air comes south. The models aren't picking up on that, but it certainly was foreseen here on the channel that we would see significant amounts of rain. That occurred. We had places 350 to 450 millimeters of rain falling within 3 or 4 days, causing major devastating flooding, and it's all to do with the build-up of heat over the course of the summer just gone, and then you push an early season Arctic air mass into that hot, humid environment. We've got exceptional drought conditions in this area as well, and all the combinations just came together. Record warm sea surface temperatures over the Mediterranean, releasing even more moisture into the atmosphere. And then to cap it all off, we had a big blocking high over the north of Europe that just trapped that system. As it moved south, it didn't just go back out again. It was stuck underneath that blocking high. And then it just caused this kind of build-up of energy, moisture, and it has to go somewhere. And obviously it went down to the surface and created a lot of devastation. So yeah, we've got 29 concurrent viewers at this moment in time. A very good afternoon to everybody. We've got Paul James tuning in as well. Hello to you, Paul. It is good to see you, my friend. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. So let's skip on and look at the global picture. So this is the temperature anomalies through the month so far. And, it's been an interesting month. We've had hot spells. We've had a cold spell. We're going to have another hot spell coming up here in Western Europe here. Very deep negative North Atlantic oscillation coming up in the weeks ahead before I released the winter forecast, we're going to look in depth at what the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation actually is. Polar vortex as well, and the relationship between the stratospheric polar vortex, the AO, the NAO. That's going to get looked at in detail and try and explain a little bit more, because I still have folks that say, what is the NAO and the AO? What does it mean? What's the polar vortex? Etc., etc. I'm going to try and break that down over the next 4 to 8 weeks or so. And then obviously the winter forecast will get released in time. Paul says, no rain here today, just cloudy, gloomy conditions. Well, pretty much it's the same story here, Paul, at the Vogan Weather HQ. Let's have a look and see what the current temperatures are actually showing here at the house, because I don't think the temperature has lifted above, about 11.2 Celsius this afternoon. Let's see, it's currently 10.9 Celsius here, roughly about 14 miles to the north of Inverness. Yeah, 11.3 Celsius for a high, 10.1 low. So the temperature's only really been about 1 Celsius of a change between midnight and currently, which is obviously the back of 4 in the afternoon. So it's only 1 degree change over that period of time, which is quite a low fluctuation due to that layer of marine influence. Further west, it is nice. Let's have a look at the current temperatures actually for the UK, and we can see here that we are sitting on 11s and 12s, especially with a kind of a slack easterly flow blowing in off relatively cool waters of the North Sea. Further west, 14, 13, we've got a 16 at Hull Bay. So you can see here the general rule of thumb is the further west you go, the better, the sunnier and warmer the conditions are. Even for the central belt, 13s and 14s under leaden skies. I think that kind of marine influence moving through the Forth Clyde Valley has kind of been stuck over the Glasgow to Edinburgh corridor. Just same idea as here, and essentially the temperature just does not lift. 16s and 17s in the west of Scotland, Northern Ireland 15, 16, 17, and that is generally the case across the Republic of Ireland as well. So very much a uniform temperature. Further south, we've got 13, 15, 16, 17 in Midlands, west into Wales, southwest England, we've got a few 20s here. Then as we move into East Anglia, we've got 20, 21, not too bad for the time of year anyway. Looking at the current satellite image, so you can see here quite messy skies over the UK. We've got a little pocket of sunshine across parts of central and western Scotland. Lots of cloud cover, quite high level clouds as well here. We've got these thunderstorms erupting here, quite a lot of instability. As that low then starts to move north, as the high pressure becomes a little bit more deflated, we're then destabilizing the air mass, and that is the change now coming after what has been a very, very settled past week or so. And you can see here this clear air between Iceland and Greenland here. This is the Arctic air that will eventually drop south over the British Isles in the days to come. And then you can see here quite the decent skies for our friend Mark Kinnish down in the Algarve. It looks as if we've got some inland showers and possible thunderstorms blowing up, but along the coast itself it doesn't look too bad. Most of Portugal looking decent. Spain has got some high level clouds, maybe a few showers about. Thicker skies as clouds as you move up towards central and eastern France, and then again the UK, it speaks for itself. Looking at the current radar of Weather Online, and you can see here this is the current precipitation. So high and dry, really from about the north of England northwards, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. We've got maybe a few showers here just to the north of the Ards Peninsula here up towards the Belfast Lough area. And then we've got some fairly heavy showers, lively showers, especially areas just to the north of London here. And we've got some shower activity further north and west as well to speak about. So anyway, let's go back to the CDAS data here. And you can see most of Europe is running well above average in terms of the temperature. We've got slightly cooler than average across most of India, quite hot across central and southern areas of China at the moment here. Down across Indonesia, Southeast Asia, we've got a warm anomaly here, and also across Australia. Across North America, let's specifically look at North America, and we can see that it's looking rather warm for the month of September so far across the majority, but there is exceptions anywhere from Texas across the deep south up through the mid-Atlantic region into the southern half of the Northeast. We're actually running slightly below average. Parts of California and Nevada, we're seeing slightly below average conditions here as well, but up the spine of the plains into most of Canada is firmly warmer than average for the month to date. Looking at South America, and the heat has certainly been on here. The majority of the continent is firmly warmer than average at the moment. Looking at the African continent, and you can see here that we've got a below average anomaly here. Obviously, the intertropical convergence zone, like very, very far north during the second half of August and through most of September. We've got quite a cool anomaly actually through the Sahel region here. So the intertropical convergence zone, which is that area of convergence that allows thunderstorms to develop. They generally start off in the Ethiopian highlands, catch the East African jet, and then it pushes these waves across the continent, out over the Atlantic, and usually we get tropical storms and hurricanes to form. But you can see here, even across most of Morocco, it's running below average. The Canary Islands is running below average as well for the month of September so far. Firmly warmer than average across most of Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, into Egypt. To the south of the equator, we've got the interior of southern Africa, largely average to slightly above average conditions here. Madagascar is warmer than average, and then down across the far south of the continent here, we've got the cooler than average conditions in Namibia, and the southern half of South Africa as well, running below average. Let's look at Europe as a whole, and we've got probably the warmest anomaly anywhere in the northern hemisphere across northeastern and northern Europe at the moment. The UK is around average. What's going to be interesting is over the next week to 10 days, the below average anomalies. So could September run slightly below average? That's going to be an interesting question, and we'll know in the next 10 days or so exactly how this month is going to turn out in terms of temperature anomaly. Looking at France, looking at Spain and Portugal, below average conditions here. Looking at Australia in particular, we've had some fairly significant amounts of rain to be had. This is Cameron H. His Twitter feed, and he's based down in Australia. I don't know whereabouts in Australia, actually. Brisbane in Queensland he is based in, and quite often produces some very interesting information with regards to Australia. This is an interesting tweet here by World Climate Service, and obviously, again, there's going to be people here that may dispute this a little bit, depending on what side of the climate fence you're sitting on. But there's no getting away from the data itself. Locations observing a record mean June, July, and August temperature. Obviously, a lot of Eastern Europe has seen the hottest summer on record. But look at these areas that have seen a record warm June through August period. Nowhere on Earth has recorded a record below average June, July, and August period, which is quite interesting actually. But this is all the areas that have seen that record warm 3-month period just gone here. And they go on to say that according to NOAA, the monthly data through where zero climate observation sites worldwide had a record cool or cold June through August period. It's the first time this has happened in at least a couple of decades, although some other years came close. For example, 2005 and 2016. So that is an interesting tweet there by World Climate Service. But it looks as if there has been some more record-breaking heat to speak about in parts of Australia. But I wanted to actually show you the rainfall, because the rain has become quite widespread actually across parts of Australia, and that could be the early indications of the La Nina becoming stronger. This is an interesting one. Rainfall and cooler temps hit at an early end to the dry season in Northern Territories. An unusual rain band led to temperatures 6 to 14 Celsius below the September averages, rising humidity and potential for showers and storms heading towards the weekend. That was back on the 18th of September. So some unusual cool and also heavy rainfall across parts of northern Australia. We did see southern Australia went from historic heat to historic cold in the past 2 nights. This is a tweet back to the 17th of September, subject to verification. Keith West automated weather station recorded minus 4.5, ties the 1995 as coldest spring night ever recorded in South Australia. And also we've seen some very remarkable cold actually across parts of Australia in recent times as well. And I'll try and find that in a second. I think it was Canberra that recorded a minus 6.9, which was the coldest ever spring minimum temperature. But as per usual, I can't really find what I was looking for here. But we'll crack on anyway with regards to the rest of the planet. We've had obviously quite a lot of extremes across parts of China. Extreme rainfall, some typhoons. We had the strongest typhoon to hit Shanghai on the east coast of China since 1949. This was a tweet here back on the 20th by Jim Yang, showing that Shanghai was hit by an extreme rainstorm due to the typhoon. And Feng Shan, I think it is, received 345 millimeters of rain in a 12-hour period, which is pretty crazy stuff. But I'll tell you what, China is no stranger to seeing extreme rainfall. Some of the biggest, 1 hour, 24-hour rainfall amounts globally has occurred in parts of China, whether it be the Meiyu front or a typhoon making landfall. But some pretty dramatic scenes coming out of China. Looks as if parts of the north of China back on the 19th of September welcomed their first snowfall. So yeah, winter is coming. In fact, let me have a quick look at the snowfall projections here off the GFS over Asia. And obviously we kind of turn our attention to Asia first. That's usually where the area, as well as parts of northern North America, even parts of Scandinavia to a lesser extent. But generally the first snows of winter starts to come a little bit more widespread as we progress through the month of September, and particularly into October. We're going to start to see a large area of Siberia become white. But if you look at this here, total snowfall, and we play all the way through the loop here. So this is obviously Asia. We've got Siberia, Russia at the north here, Scandinavia in the edge, Europe. But as we play through this loop, look at how much snow starts to fill up over parts of Western China. Interestingly enough, Mongolia. And look at the Siberia. And this is the period all the way out between now and Tuesday the 8th of October. Large area, quite an early extent, this amount of snow. You don't often see that, by the way. So this looks as if winter is going to become quite prominent over northern Eurasia over the next 2 or 3 weeks here. So, and this will be the beginning of winter really starting to show its hand here. So have I got any interesting comments to speak about at the moment before we continue to crack on? We've got Nathan Richardson as well tuning in. Hello to you, Nathan. Have I got anybody else that I've not mentioned? Chris A says, Mark, does a wet September mean a warm winter? Sometimes actually, Joe Bastardi, Chris, of Weather Bell, I've followed Joe for probably the guts of about 20 years. And Joe's a great long-range weather forecaster based in State College, Pennsylvania in the United States. And he quite often in years gone by, I've been doing winter forecasts since the 2009-10 winter. So this winter coming up is actually my 15th consecutive winter forecast, which is pretty crazy stuff when I think about that. But Joe used to mention that heavy rainfall, where the heaviest rain would fall during the mid to late autumn period. sometimes was an indicator, an atmospheric indicator as to where the cold trough was going to go during the winter that followed that. So very heavy rainfall, where that sets up during particularly October and November. His theory was that that would be where the wintertime trough would try and go. And remember back in the autumn of 2009, and I think to an extent even 2010, we had really significant flooding in parts of the UK. Remember 2009, Cumbria, for example, a bit of a disaster really in the Cockermouth area. I'm sure there's folks that can remember that well. But that November seen a deluge come to parts of Cumbria and other parts of the UK. And then what followed, well, it was the coldest winter for the UK since 78, 79. It was Scotland's coldest winter since the 1960s. How much truth is there in that, or whether it's a little bit of fluke, I do not know. But, sometimes wet autumns, I don't know so much about September's, but wet autumns can sometimes lead the potential for cold during the winter season. So I don't know. That's probably a kind of wishy-washy, around the bush explanation to your question. But it is a good question, and I'm not so sure. I'm not entirely sure about that, because we've seen really wet autumns and it's been a mild winter. We've seen wet autumns and it's been a cold winter. So we'll wait and see what happens going forward here. But so that's obviously the prospects of snow building over Scandinavia. Let's actually look at Europe and see what it's indicating in terms of snow. Because we know that the Arctic Air is coming south. This is really the total accumulated snow between now and Tuesday, the 8th of October. Not a whole lot. It's only picking up on the Grampians, the Cairngorms in the Northwest Highlands, the Alps, the Pyrenees, up across Scandinavia. The usual kind of suspect areas is going to see snow over the next couple of weeks or so here. Looking in terms of the temperature anomalies here, this is the latest of the CFSV2 weeklies. And this is the upcoming week. So there's the deep trough. Wow, that is quite a trough dropping into the UK, Ireland and northwestern Europe here. Not just quite so much reaching the southern portions of Portugal and Spain here, but certainly that is a deep trough. Let's look at the rainfall over the next 7 days. Remember, it's been quite dry up until the last couple of days, but this is the rain anomalies here. Very wet across the bulk of England and Wales. So David and Joyce going down to Shrewsbury, it looks as if there's certainly quite a significant amount of rain headed your way, and many areas of England, Wales, and up the eastern side of Scotland. It looks as if eastern Ireland looks as if it's going to be a wet anomaly over the next 7 days. France is going to see a lot of rain as well. But across Northern Ireland, it looks as if it's close to average, drier than average on the west coast of Scotland and on the islands here of the west. Nathan Richardson says, 2010 was my first cold winter. I remember the snowdrifts as high as the top of the garage doors and putting foil on the old windows to keep the heat in. You certainly know it's cold when you've got icicles hanging off the eaves of the house and maybe even a little bit of ice on the inside of the window. I remember Lindsay and I driving up February of 2021. We drove, I done a night shift. Lindsay was actually with me at the time. We drove down to the central belt with the lorry, back up, and it says to her, temperatures were widely into the teens below freezing. I said to Lindsay, let's go up to Kinbrace up in Sutherland, where it was expected to be the coldest temperature anywhere in the UK. Incidentally, that night actually was an exceptionally cold night. We drove up the east coast. The temperature on the gauge, even along the east coast, was sitting at -15, -16, right on the water side. And then we drove inland from Helmsdale, drove along this little single track road. The car was running along the kind of crunchy, icy road. It was frozen solid snow cover, and the temperature hit -21 Celsius on the car, and the ice never left the inside of the car windows. It was incredible. We were blasting the heat the whole way up the road, and the ice on the inside of the car was thick. It just would not melt, even with the heat running. It was that cold on the outside. So that was a pretty incredible experience, I must admit. And that was the coldest for the UK since 1995. It beat any temperature that was recorded in the 0910, December 2010. That night on February 2021 was the coldest. Braemar had minus 23 Celsius. Kinbrace, I think, was around minus 22 Celsius. So pretty amazing stuff, actually. We've got Callum Potter. Sorry, I will get there. But Callum Potter says, "Hi, Mark and all. It has seemed to be a different year of weather compared to modern years." Oh, I've kind of lost you. Cooler summer and certainly a cooler September so far. It certainly is, Callum. It's going to be interesting, this, because we've not seen a cooler than average summer since 2015. It reminds me a little bit of the summers between 2009 and about 2012. That was that era where we had cool summers and cold winters. So is it a slight omen? Who knows? I'm trying my best not to get too excited. So let me see here if we can see any other interesting things to speak about that 09-10 winter. Just personally, I would love it. I know the government have chucked out the heating allowance, if I'm right in saying, to the old and vulnerable, which is not good. And I don't want to get into politics. I try to sway away from politics, if I'm being honest. But this could be one of those winters where you all of a sudden have a real winter, and yet they remove that allowance from the government. This could be a very challenging winter for many people, unfortunately. And I certainly hope some of the thoughts that I have, particularly for the early portion of the winter, I kind of hope they don't come true, because it could be a difficult time for people. So this is the CFSV2 temperature anomaly for the upcoming 7-day period. You can see here slightly warmer than average across the south of the British Isles here, firmly below average across the north and across Ireland and Northern Ireland. Into week 2, below average. This takes us out to the end, almost the end of week 1 of October here. Looking at the GFS ensemble here for the upcoming period. So this is day 1 through 5. Again, slightly warmer than average. It's actually picking up on the London area. So the urban area of London, Greater London, slightly above average here. But again, further west and north you go over the UK and Ireland, below average conditions. And we play through this loop. And you can see here, down comes the hammer of below average. That is quite a significant below average signal here as we leave September, begin the month of October. And that holds through 3rd through the 8th of October, below average conditions. So anyway, it's a global weather and climate report. So let's continue to look at the global picture. And we always refer to our friend in Vancouver, Canada, Thierry Goose, looking at some of the extremes that have been taking place across parts of Canada. Late September record heat up around the Hudson Bay area. Let's skip through here. Temperatures down in South America, Bolivia, 44.5 Celsius at Villamont. I think our pronunciations are shocking. I do apologise. I probably butcher a lot of these names, but according to him anyway, the second highest September temperature at that station since 2000 was achieved here, but quite far from the monthly record and the national record of 46.4. Obviously, it's the springtime to the south of the equator, so South America is now starting to enter, as is South Africa and adjacent areas, Australia, Indonesia. This is now where winter has ended and we're beginning summer season down in the south here. Down in Cuba, we had a temperature of 38.4 Celsius at Velasco, north of Holguin. Temperature, if reliable, somewhat skeptical about this value, but given how much other areas, this would be the second highest ever recorded in Cuba in September. Down in Japan, it was the last day, this is on the 20th of September, the last day of an extraordinary long and intense heat wave. Japan has really seen a brutal heat all the way through the summertime. We've seen records fall daily, monthly, seasonally. It's been astonishing. Then if we move down to Antarctica, Vostok Station recorded the temperature on the 20th of September of minus 81.7. This is the coldest temperature recorded down in the southern hemisphere and globally for 2024 so far, I believe. Exceptionally low temperature for so late in the month. This is the coldest of the whole winter, and obviously we're in spring now. Seems to be a trend actually in recent years that the coldest temperatures hit Antarctica during the springtime, and tends to be warmer than average during the winter season, of course. Minus 10.4 at Eureka up in Northern Territory, so we're skipping back to the far north of the planet. This was the first minus 10 of the season in Canada. It's quite late on to see the first minus 10. South Korea, again, record-breaking heat to speak about here. Seen some very warm temperatures up across northern portions of Scandinavia. So there's 38 concurrent viewers at the moment. Please hit that like button, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. Continuing to skip through, we've seen the first real cold affecting parts of Siberia and Russia here, 810 meters above sea level. This was the first station in Russia to record a temperature below minus 10 this season, if I'm not wrong in saying, with a minus 11.5. So again, I think it's quite late on for parts of Canada and parts of Siberia to record the first minus double digits below freezing. You tend to find that happens a little bit earlier in the month of September, if I'm right in saying that. We've seen some record snowfall across parts of the Alps. We obviously seen all the flood and rainfall has been already highlighted here for quite some time. This is talking about that record-breaking cold in parts of Australia. We've seen some record rain and snow across parts of Europe. Really has been quite an extreme September across the continent of Europe. So let me just see here. Look at these scenes here. Are we going to get this? Are we going to see this in the upcoming winter? That's going to be the question. Is this a harbinger of things to come in terms of temperature? Who knows? So, yeah, let me see if there's any other interesting things to speak about. I'll go onto my own Twitter feed and let me just see if I've missed anything particularly noteworthy in recent times. Obviously, La Nina is starting to come on. There's a few things. Christian on Twitter provides some very interesting technical explanation from a meteorological point of view. We'll talk a little bit about Christian's tweets in the upcoming European outlook. So I want to talk a little bit more about this very weak polar vortex and the relationship between it, the MJO, the developing La Nina. We're going to be looking at this in a lot more detail, but this is an interesting one. Solar maximum, the West QBO La Nina tends to lead to more of a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation during the winter season here. We've got this deep negative at the moment here. So we're going to be looking at this here in a good bit of detail going forward here this upcoming week. And yeah, let me just see if there's anything else that really stands out. So obviously, very, very significant snow and cold in Johannesburg in South Africa. So yeah, I want to show you that highway actually between Durban, I think, and between Durban and Johannesburg, because some of the snow scenes was pretty remarkable actually. Let me have a look and see here, and then we'll probably call it quits at that. Let's see here. Am I going to see a tweet? And then like I say, we'll finish up with that. What time is it anyway? It's just going on for 10 to 5 in the evening. No, it doesn't actually look as if it's going to show me that, unfortunately, which is a little bit strange. But it was basically cars trapped in deep snowdrifts across parts of South Africa in recent days. It's a flooding. Let's look at disaster news. Actually, this is usually quite good. usually shows quite a lot of flood events. This is Tarragona, by the way, province in Spain, in the last day or so here with thunderstorms. Unfortunately, that in Europe, that has become quite a common sight. There it is here. So this was the scene on a highway. Heavy snowfall between Johannesburg and Durban on the N3 route, South Africa. And this is the first time in a long time we've seen conditions as bad as this. So there you go, look at this here. Unfortunately, these vehicles are going nowhere anytime soon. It's probably changed now, obviously, but since those images came out. But that was a scene, that was a tweet on the 21st of September. This is the flooding in parts of Japan. Terrible flood due to heavy rain in Wagima City in Japan. This was the scene in parts of Turkey. So again, warmer world, more moisture in the atmosphere, producing more extreme rainfall events. This was the scene again in parts of Turkey. There's a container running down what appears to be a street, or it is a body of water, I don't know which. This was the scene in parts of Italy. So even when a lot of the attention was away from the areas of South Poland, parts of Austria that was recording some record rainfall, then we've seen that area of low pressure continue to remain trapped beneath that block to the north. And parts of Italy was seeing some major flooding. Obviously, Carolina Beach, I've made mention of this during the past week. The non-named system that provided 20 inches of rain in the space of 12 hours in parts of North Carolina. Some pretty remarkable scenes. But yeah, the story has been generally flash flooding over the past week in many areas of Central Europe, but also elsewhere across the world where tropical systems. This was the scene, unfortunately, in parts of Ecuador. We've also seen parts of northern Portugal ravaged by wildfire. So one extreme, we've got the rainfall. On the other side of the continent, we've got some exceptional dry conditions, wildfires, etc. This was the scene due to Typhoon Yagi in parts of Vietnam. That's way back on the 7th of September. So anyway, let's finish off by looking at the temperature anomalies globally, and then we'll round up, I promise. So let's have a look and see what the temperature anomalies for the upcoming 5 days is looking globally. A lot of warmth over Greenland due to that negative NAO signal here with this blocking high across the north. There's the cold into the UK and Ireland here. A little bit hard to see. Let's blow this up real quick and we can see a bit clearer. So due to that blocking high over Greenland, we've got anomalous warmth as a result. Also a lot of warmth across the majority of North America, with the exceptions of western Alaska and down across North Texas, up into western Oklahoma. Kansas seems to be an area of below average conditions here. We'll look at the tropics in the coming week as well. Looking at Africa, we've still got below average across the equatorial belt, warmer than average across the north. We've still got that southeast corner of Africa below average. Look at Australia, we've got a reasonably cold upcoming 5 days across the majority, exceptions of Northern Territories and Western Australia. Looking across much of Asia and Eurasia, we've still got heat Central and Eastern Europe. Got a cold area in Northern Kazakhstan into Central and Western Russia, warmer than average further east, down into much of China, with the exceptions of coastal areas of China. We've got below average conditions here. I think we've got a couple of remnant tropical systems that's in the southeast China Sea that is bringing heavier rainfall, and as a result of that, we're seeing below average conditions. Most of the South American continent is running above average, over the next 5 days. Looking at precipitation anomalies, and then we will finish up. You can see here that we've got dry conditions across the North Atlantic. There's a belt that's wetter than average due to that south displaced jet stream, so extending from the Western Atlantic across and into particularly the southern UK, drier the further north you go due to higher pressure. Looking down across Indonesia, we've got wet conditions. Look at Australia over the next week or so. We've got average to above average precipitation here, which is good as we move through the spring months. We've got slightly wetter conditions across Africa. We're starting to see the main development region of the tropics start to kind of quieten things down as well. In terms of that, it's usually at this time of the year you start to see development within the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Frontal systems moving off the North American continent. We tend to have spin-ups and systems that develop. The main development region, the tropical Atlantic, tends to start quietening down as you move into the month of October. So anyway, let's finish up. We've got 39 concurrent viewers at the moment. Before you leave today, would you please hit that like button? It would be much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already done so. We're going to be looking more at winter, the month of October coming up. Next week's live stream will be at the later time of 7:30 p.m. So just to remind you, there will be a live stream next week, but it's going to be at the later time of 7:30. And Lindsay looks as if she's taking the mickey out of me by saying, yeah, that's right. Because I made a comment in a video way back. I think it was actually when I done the video of Kinbrace in the cold when it was minus 21, and I made a statement, and that's become a running joke between Lindsay and I. Yeah, you wouldn't understand unless you're actually part of the joke, and I'm usually quite often at the end of any joke. So Paul James says, seen some amazing videos from South Africa. Yeah, certainly has been some remarkable scenes. As Crazy Snow says. Laura, we've got Nathan here. I think it said it's been worse than 10 years. I think you're right, actually. Nathan. Callum Potter says, maybe this year will be the year for a cold winter. We're definitely due one, and I think the weather patterns this year so far look a bit more promising for cold lovers. I would have to agree with that, Callum. I do think certainly through the first half of winter anyway, I'm kind of leaning a little bit away from the cold middle and second half La Nina winters. West QPO. It'll be interesting to see how this polar vortex goes. In fact, let's have a quick check of that. So this is the mean zonal winds. I said I was going to round up. I promise I will in a second. We've got this kind of record weak vortex at the moment. So this is the winds being at record weak levels as that cold pool builds over the North Pole. The stronger the vortex, the stronger the winds are, and tends to be the stronger the westerlies are in the westerly jet stream. The weaker the vortex, the weaker the winds, and the weaker the westerlies can often be. And remember, we've got a lot of heat built up over the past few months in the middle altitude pattern. When you've got these slack or weak winds within the atmosphere at high latitudes, it allows a lot of that warmth to go up into the Arctic, and that then forces the Arctic oscillation to go negative. That then releases any of that cold and bleeds it into the middle altitude. So it's going to be I keep saying this, it's going to be a very interesting upcoming few weeks and months to come for sure. So anyway, let me round up. We've got Jack Lowe. Have I said hello to you, Jack? I may or may not have. Hi, Mark, and hi all. I think you're just tuning in. Hope all's well. Real change in the weather today. Rain, 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 says Jack. We've also got Steffi also in. So a good afternoon to you, Steffi. Hope you're enjoying your weekend and what's left of it anyway. So yeah, we'll round up there. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. We will have the European Outlook back at tea time tomorrow, looking at the current weather situation across the UK, Ireland and Europe. But we are going to be looking at interesting things with regards to the upcoming winter season in the week ahead as well. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon, everybody. And I'll see you both tomorrow and the week ahead, but also the live stream next Sunday evening as well. We've also got Hazel tuning in as well. Hello to you, Hazel. And also goodbye to you, Hazel, as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.